Last week I was trying to remember the name of the street down the street from somewhere that I lived like 20 years ago. And so I kind of like walked down the street and in my head.
In your head, yeah.
Of course.
Of course. Why not?
Because it was in France, so I can't just go there. And like kind of looked at the sign for the market that I was trying to remember, and I was like, oh yeah.
If you would like to support the efforts and research we are doing here on this podcast, please go to podcast.discoveringyourmind.com and become a monthly supporter. We greatly appreciate your support. Thank you. Aphantasia is a condition characterized by an inability to visualize mental images in one's mind. If you have just discovered that you or someone you love has aphantasia, or if you're just fascinated by the subject in general and love learning more about it, you are in the right place. The Discovering Your Mind podcast delves into all aspects of the mind's eye, including aphantasia, hyperphantasia, and everything in between. Welcome to the Discovering Your Mind podcast, brought to you by shanesbraindomain.com. I am your host, Shane Williams, also known as Shane's Brain, and today we're talking with Callie and Alex. They are partners. They are in a relationship. I have interviewed each of them separately in the past. So if you haven't listened to their individual episodes, please go back and check those out. Callie has hyperphantasia and Alex has aphantasia with maybe a touch of hypophantasia. And we thought it would be fun and interesting to talk with them together to discuss how their internal differences might affect their relationship. So welcome back to the podcast, Callie and Alex.
Thanks. It's nice to be here again.
Yeah, thank you. We're going to come here often. It seems like it's like a habitual thing. We're just going to set up a monthly meeting or something at this point.
Sounds good to me. You're always welcome.
Awesome.
All right. Well, let's just dive right in. What are your shared and individual experiences with hypnosis and hypnotherapy?
So neither of us was really familiar with it when we met 3 years ago.
3 years ago, yeah.
I think Alex had the first experience with it when he did like kind of a, not a deep hypnosis, but kind of a light hypnosis with a local therapist to change some habits.
Yeah, quit smoking. Yeah.
And that actually, like, I don't know, you kind of had a mixed experience with that.
Yeah, I got out of the session and I lit a cigarette. So I was like, all right, this is not working. This is not for me. But yeah, that was the first one.
Yeah, but then we learned about like deeper hypnosis and about like trance hypnosis and regressive hypnosis through some books that we happened to come across. And they mostly focused on going into past lives. That hasn't necessarily been our focus, but we thought that the idea of really going into like the very deep, relaxed state to access parts of yourself that you don't usually access on a daily basis was really interesting. And so we both did a session or two with other professionals of like the deeper regressive type hypnosis, but we had different experiences with that because of the different phantasias.
So at this point, you guys were clueless about your aphantasia and hyperphantasia.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
We had no idea that we
it.
saw things so differently inside our heads.
Didn't even know the concepts. I hadn't shared any thoughts about it. For me, as most hypnosis techniques are visual based, I got very frustrated because theoretical hypnosis is you go to relaxation, then deep relaxation, and then you go on to like some visual trip, and then you access your subconscious, and then you interact with it. And a lot of it is visual based. And so the hypnotherapy I did the first time, the first part of it was visual based, and they were like, all right, so you're going down this hallway and you're opening a door. What do you see? And I was like, pitch black. And they're like, all right, let's move on. Let's go deeper. You can get this out. And then they're like, all right, so now you're opening the second door. What do you see? Still black. and so there was a bit of frustration, obviously, with that. But then once they finished the visual part and it was just like conversational hypnosis, that's when it became very interesting to me, because the hypnosis is actually getting into a lucid state. where you can share deep subconscious wisdom. And that was a very interesting experience where I give myself some good advice about parenting. And that was a really interesting experience, but it was a mix of emotions because I really thought that I had to like change something in myself because I was broken because I couldn't visualize. I was like, there must be something wrong. And my friends were like, yeah, everyone does it. You must have something wrong.
Okay.
So that's how I came across it multiple times. It was kind of interesting to look back on the past and be like, oh, I wasn't broken. I just didn't know. And it's only later on that we discovered that it was actually a thing and it was okay. And to force something that's actually natural and not a problem, it makes my relationship to it very different. And I think my relationship with aphantasia has really shifted once I discovered the concept. But it was more like, in psychology, a grieving process of I really wanted to try the visuals because I wanted to like fly in the sky in my head or whatever, And then it's like, oh, I can't do that. Oh, well, and then he's like, oh, okay, well, I have to accept that. You go through this grieving process of, okay, it's actually normal, but then what does it mean? And how does that change my perception of life? And how does it change my internal perception? And then all the questions came up, and that's when we met.
Right.
And so you opened that box even wider, and I was like, oh boy, like there's so many other questions Shane has asked me that my brain is even more broken in a good way now.
Right.
So it was a very different experience for me, unsurprisingly. I had no problem following the visualization instructions when I saw a professional to do it. She did the typical picture your happy place, and I immediately went to a place that I've been to before that I loved and was able to tap into the feeling of being there, and just follow all those instructions of what she said about, okay, from there, I don't know, you get on a boat, and then the boat goes out to sea, and then you get on a cloud. I don't remember the whole process, but it was a very smooth process for me. And I was able to get into pretty deep hypnosis. And it was actually a really life-changing experience because at the time, partially because of long COVID and some other things, my nervous system was a mess and I was constantly anxious. And through the hypnosis, I was able to tap into a part of myself that was underneath the anxiety. And it helped me remember what it felt like to be calm and feel safe. And then I was able to take that memory with me once I was out of hypnosis. And it kind of helped reset my baseline, or at least give me a reference point to go back to when I started feeling really anxious again. I could just go back to what I was seeing and feeling when I was in hypnosis. And that was very healing.
Yeah, that sounds very powerful to be able to experience something like that. All right. How has discovering aphantasia and hyperphantasia affected your relationship?
What comes to mind for me right away is that it affects our relationships to the past and the future in different ways. And also the present moment, because with all the images that I have in my head, it's much harder for me to stay present than it is for Alex.
In real time?
Yeah, because I constantly have all these images playing at the same time on top of whatever reality I'm currently in. And so I'm seeing the future, I'm seeing the past, and it takes an effort for me to try to pull out of that and just focus on exactly what he's saying and being here right now. So there are pros and cons to that.
It was an interesting evolution, I think. So first of all, when we discovered it, we had no clue that it had an effect on how we perceive the world. At first, we're like, "Oh, I can't visualize," and you can.
Yeah, you can see an apple, I can't see an apple. Okay.
So we're like, "Oh, big deal, big deal." All right, now there's a name to this. Okay, and then it's like, well, wait a minute. When I'm talking to you, you see things, and then I remember you're like, "Yeah, all the time." And I was like, "Wait, all the time?" And then I started to understand flashbacks. I never understood flashbacks. And then I understand flashbacks through her. And I remember, but this was along the way we discovered all this. We had amazing conversations about, how sometimes I'll tell jokes and I don't tell the same jokes anymore.
Right.
On visual jokes now, out of respect. And so that has been a shift because I realized that it's something that's showing up for her. So I can't be saying awkward stuff because it's going to pop visually. I'm aware of that. And so I make an effort to understand and adapt and in order to, empathize with the fact that it's show up in real time and that affects Callie. So that was an interesting process to go through. But then, we had such great questions that showed up like, well, how does your memory work if you don't see the past? And I was like, beats me. It's just a thought that just goes from one to another, to another, to another. And there's no visuals, but there's concepts and maybe an inner dialogue sometimes. But yeah, it's been an interesting experience. And I think that the more we talk about it, the more we understand how our reality functions for each other. And this has also had an effect on how we look at how things are like in our homes. If I'm in a room and it's a mess and I change rooms, the mess just disappeared forever until I go back to it. It doesn't for Callie.
No,
so
I could be on the other side of the world and I can still see the mess in my kitchen that I have to clean up when I get home.
That's something that we've been working on together. And I think that's been an interesting evolution to balance it out, to respect visuals and, so, yeah.
And then, I think it's also come up because we've done a lot of, sounds kind of cliche, but like healing work together as a couple, trying to work through stuff that we've each experienced in the past so that it doesn't continue to affect our present and our future in ways that aren't optimal. And so I think like in terms of identifying things that happened to us in the past that we want to work through, I think it maybe comes a little bit more obviously to me what I need to or want to work on because it just pops in my head visually and I'm like, oh yeah, that's something. And it's not that it doesn't come to him, but I think it comes to him as body sensations maybe.
It's
and so that's not necessarily immediately linkable to a certain event. And
yes,
do you want to talk about that?
It's a feeling that something might be off and we can work on it, but then trying to figure out what this symptom feeling I have in my body means as like a whole system for me to like understand. That's more challenging, but it's been interesting to understand that, humans function with patterns, like algorithms, emotional algorithms, and we just do a bunch of stuff and we meet other archetypes and then we're able to interact with them. And sometimes you get into these patterns that are habits. So we had a lot of conversations around what does that mean? How does it show up? How do you feel in your body? How do you feel visually? What does that mean for the other? And acknowledging that we don't process the world the same way, but they're both valid and they're both interesting to share and to put together. So that's where putting together how we see the world or don't see the world is actually super interesting. And that's been we talk a lot about that kind of stuff.
Right. That's beautiful. I love those little points that you touched on because I really do think that this is important for people to know, right? And that's why I do what I do. So many people seem to gloss over it at first, kind of like you guys did. Oh, yeah, there's a difference, but big deal. Right. Yeah, right. And I love that you've gone into some of those ways that it has positively affected your relationship. It sounds like it's been a positive. Would you say that?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Learning that there's a different way to exist than the way that you thought everybody existed.
It's humbling, actually.
Yeah.
It's very humbling.
When I started to understand a little bit better what aphantasia was for him, I had really mixed feelings about it because I don't know, I didn't have exactly the same grief process as him because for me, it wasn't so much about there's nothing there. It's about there's so much there. So if I'm missing anything, what I'm missing is the nothing. He has the nothing.
Right.
And so, I don't know, it's funny to think about having grief around the idea that you don't have nothing.
Say that again.
That was a lot of like double negatives.
Right. I get it.
I didn't get it.
So, like, I can go to a happy place in my head in theory, but I can't go to a blank place in my head. And that's something that I've been trying to figure out what that means for me. And envious that it comes so easily for him, because I think it does help him, like I said, stay in the moment more, not get anxious about the future in the same way that I do, and be more physically connected to your body. I think when I'm in my head so much, it disconnects me from my body, and that's had a big effect on my health. Like, I wasn't aware that that's what was going on. And so now I'm trying to kind of like unravel all those years of being disconnected from my body. I've been playing with trying to picture nothing, but it's a really concentrated effort to try to get there.
Yeah, it reminds me of a guy I recently interviewed who also has hyperphantasia. And he said, I can imagine anything you ask me to imagine, except for the lack thereof.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like if you say, imagine a rabbit, I can imagine a rabbit, but then I can't not imagine a rabbit.
Yeah.
Right. Like the don't think of a pink elephant.
Exactly.
Yeah. Still black. Yeah.
Yeah. I can successfully not think of a pink elephant. It's not hard at all for me to not do that. It's just a word. Once it's done being spoken, it's gone.
It's gone. Yeah.
And it was never there.
Yeah.
Right.
The concept popped in my head. That's what you would say. That's it. The
So
concept.
you don't see how cute it is in the tutu dancing ballet.
Beats me, you know.
All right. Very cool. All right. Let's talk about some of your differences. Which one of you would you say enjoys reading more?
That's interesting because I think we mostly, I'd say, audiobook people now.
I think in the past, I read more just like text books without images, because I didn't feel like I needed images. But Alex was really into
Fiction and graphic novels.
Graphic novels and mangas.
Mangas, graphic novels, comic books.
Very strongly illustrated things with less text. And I never felt drawn to that at all. So it's been actually really cool to experience those stories through him, because he gets something really deep from looking at those images that I don't get at all. And so hearing him talk about like the stories and the like lessons,
The lores, yes.
Yeah, and the archetypes in those kinds of books has been valuable for us.
Okay. So what about just regular fiction novels, not graphic novels or not comic books, nothing with any pictures, just words on a page? How do you each experience that? And do you like reading such things?
It's a concentrated effort of focus on singular words that translate into concepts that are non-visual. That's actually taking a lot of power away from my brain. And I realized that going straight to audiobooks or transcriptions or podcasts or whatnot, just my brain just picks up on stuff so much faster that it's an effort to read. For me, it's not to listen, if that makes sense. So I think that regardless of the material I'm doing, and especially like if it's like a novel or I don't know, science fiction or fantasy, whatever. I tried reading some stuff recently that my friends recommended, some cool sci-fi stuff. And my brain just like doesn't remember names, doesn't understand what the world is, where they're at, where they're traveling to, where they're from, what they look like. I completely forget from one chapter to another. So it's actually pretty frustrating. So I don't do that anymore. It's not lack of interest, it's focus and the effort from reading specifically. Listening is very different, I think, for me.
Yeah. Whereas when I read novels, I get very elaborate images in my head of exactly what the characters look like and the places they are and all of that and how it evolves over time, to the point where, you know, this is a fairly common experience, but like if I'll read a novel and then go see the movie, I really don't like the movie usually because it's so like the images are completely different than the way that I pictured it. And so I actually at some point realized that it's more enjoyable for me to see the movie first and then read the book, because then I don't have the contrast of the two versions of the images.
So my take on that's interesting. I never thought of it till now. But when I used to read a book, so I read the Harry Potters when I was younger and I went to see the movies. And I was like, oh, cool. I get to see like all this crazy stuff that they talked about. So I was like, oh, the visuals are cool. And I was like, but they're missing something the inner dialogue was so profound. We're missing on the inner dialogue in the movie. And I used to tell people, and they're like, what are you talking about? I think I understand more why I related more to the inner dialogue, and how I felt that was important.
So would you say you have a strong inner dialogue?
I think so, yeah. I think so, yeah.
How does that show up? Do you like talk to yourself?
Well, it's the inner dialogue is not so much a back and forth of me talking to myself and answering questions. It's more like a thread of thought that just goes from one to another, but it's very fast and it's always happening all the time. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Would you say it's audible or quiet?
I think it's quiet, mostly quiet, I'd say, yes. Sometimes I can get some auditory memories of, someone who told me as a kid, to clean up my room, something that never happens as a kid, right? And so I can hear that voice in my head sometimes.
So, Callie, for you with audiobooks, when you're listening to an audiobook that's fiction, do you have the same visual experience as you do when you're reading on paper? Does it affect the way you visualize it all, reading versus listening?
Good question.
You should start a podcast. That's a great question.
To be honest, and I think I touched upon this very briefly last time we talked, because of the long COVID and things like that I've been experiencing the last few years, I haven't been able to sit down and read text the way that I used to be.
It's the brain fog. Is that? Yeah, it's brain fog. That comes with
so audiobooks have been like a lifesaver the last few years. Mm-hmm. So actually, I don't know how to compare the two. I think it's a pretty equal experience for me. Yeah, either way, I get very strong visuals and get very pulled into it.
Okay, which one of you did better in school? This is audio, Alex. You need to talk.
Oh shit! Yeah, I was pointing. Sorry. Yeah, so definitely Callie. Yeah, sorry. Thank you for reminding me.
Yeah, but I think it's been kind of like an inverse lines almost, where I did really well at school all the way through master's degree, and then like the last few years my career was maybe a little bit more difficult for me. I mean, I definitely had some good success, but then also some challenges. And for Alex, it's maybe been kind of the other way around. Not
studying
school as much.
Was painful. And, I studied in France too. So it's the French educational system from the 90s. So there's a lot to say about how they taught back then.
Not very validating.
Not very validating.
Yeah. But then you've really blossomed in your career lately.
Getting into a job environment, it was like full-time, same people, have to make this work kind of energy, which is very different from going to school and performing individually. So I think there was a big shift in my connection with productivity, or, just being in a work environment. I think that has shifted along the years.
Do you think that specific things like testing would play a role? Because I've talked to people with hyperphantasia, and some of them talk about being able to, just pull up the vocabulary words, in their head and just look at them. And where someone like me with those kind of tests, you just like, pulling stuff out of nowhere. And so I wonder about that dynamic. Do you think that there are specific things like that have affected the way you performed in school?
Yeah, I think being able to visualize stuff in my head definitely helped with test taking, especially, reviewing for the test very shortly before taking it. Then when I'm trying to remember an answer, if it doesn't just come to me automatically, I can kind of go back through the textbook or my notes in my head and get to the place where it talks about whatever it is the question's about and kind of re-visualize it. I don't have a full photographic memory like some people, but especially if it's something I've reviewed lately, I can probably pull it back up.
And this is why I think it's so important that teachers know about this, because a lot of times, Callie and I could be having the same test and she's succeeding at it and I'm failing at it. And it's not because of effort. It's just because of the way our minds work. So a lot of times I think what happens is people start making assumptions. Oh, he's lazy, or he doesn't care, or,
bad memory.
Yeah. Right. When that may be true, but there may be other options to consider as well.
Yeah, I think I was lucky because the way my brain worked just happened to fit with the way schools traditionally assess people. But something that I'm grateful for my mother teaching me about, because she worked with what were called gifted and talented students, and she really learned a lot and was one of the early people within like our local school systems to talk about multiple intelligences and how like the traditional academic form of intelligence is just one among many very important kinds of intelligence. But unfortunately, schools don't necessarily take that into account or reward it. So it's been very humbling the last few years, because with the long COVID brain fog, my brain hasn't worked quite the way that it used to. I've also tried to expand the kinds of things that I've been learning about. So I've been trying to learn more about like physical health in order to help myself heal. For example, trying to learn about how to do different massage techniques, because it's like physical and kinetic. My brain does not retain that in the same way. And like my hyperphantasia does not help perform those different movements. And so, yeah, for the first time in my life, I've been like literally failing at studying something. And yeah, it gave me a lot of empathy, for example, for people in my family who have different kinds of intelligences than I do, different kinds of skill sets and ways of learning. And yeah, just really seeing that like I happened to be in a system that happened to fit my brain, but there need to be more different kinds of learning systems that are equally valued, in my opinion.
Yeah. All right. Which one of you has better focus?
Well, we both have ADHD.
Yeah. I think we're becoming more aware of how it functions for us to focus. And it's very different, but we talk about it. And in a world where everything is about perspective and real time, like focus is an important mind exercise that you can work on through relaxation and different elements. And that comes out in different forms for both of us, I think. And we can work on those elements by not comparing to other people, actually, just by understanding that what we're living is extremely valid. We understand it. We can put names on it, and that helps us understand our focus.
How would you say you are able to get yourself focused when you want to be?
It depends if I'm relaxing in a auto-hypnotic way, which is laying down and breathing and stuff like that. But when I'm with people, I try to snap myself out of getting distracted by visual stuff around me. So it's kind of counterintuitive. But for example, if I'm working, I'm trying to focus on something, sometimes I'll just close my eyes and I will focus, because the only input that's coming is the sound, nothing else. But you don't want it to seem as if you're sleeping during a meeting, right? So it can get tricky. But I'd say that tuning out in real time all the other senses and focusing on the audio is something that I definitely am more aware of, and I try to put in practice.
It's interesting.
Yeah. How about you? Do you have any visual tips and tricks for hyperphantasia people out there?
It's easier for me to focus on things that I can visualize and that are pleasant to visualize.
Okay, well, it's really important, actually.
Yeah. So I think in the past, especially, I had trouble focusing on things like money and budgeting as an example, because to me, it felt very hard to picture.
It's all grids and
like
numbers.
And whenever I start to look at a big spreadsheet of numbers, my head starts to spin. And so I can't do that in my head on my own. But if I attach numbers to physical things that are more pleasant to think about, like, for example, we've been talking about real estate stuff lately.
Yeah.
And so instead of trying to picture like a spreadsheet in my head, I'll picture like, let's say, the whole house, and kind of walk around the house and think of like, okay, well, we would need to budget for this part because this needs a repair, and kind of do it through like chronologically as well. Like, okay, maybe this part would need a repair in 5 years and this part would need a repair in 10 years, and then kind of stack those on top of each other.
Which one of you has the better memory?
I don't know if there's a better memory. It's just very different, because I will retain strong emotional situations, non-visual, but strong emotions and very specific. But I will forget names. I will forget streets. I will forget dates. I will forget events. I don't forget a face when I see it. Like if I see it again, I'll definitely recognize it. But I think it's just a different type of memory. But we've talked about this actually, and it's interesting because like, well, how do you remember that? And she's like, oh, it's just like a movie.
Yeah, like I can kind of try to fast forward or rewind to whatever point in time I'm trying to remember. But the thing is that like some parts of my memory have more detail in them and some are more of just a blur. And it tends to have more detail when it was like either an unusual event or a really emotionally strong event. And then everything in between just becomes kind of a blur of like lots of overlapping motion.
Like a filler kind of thing almost.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, like the routine stuff, like
taking shower. You don't remember your shower. I don't remember
individual showers usually. Like I don't remember individual meals that I cooked unless there was like a certain thing going on. Yeah, the routine stuff I have very little memory of. And I was actually known in my family as having not a great memory for specific incidents. But yeah, the people around me, like my best friend when I was younger and my sister and my ex-husband, they had very good specific memories. And so they were kind of like my external hard drives that I'd be like, hey, what happened? Or no, they would bring something up and I would have no idea what they were talking about. And they would remind me of the memory and then I could repicture it.
Okay. So Alex mentioned that he can't remember things like names, streets, events. Are you better at that? And when you go and replay those memories, can you see things like that? Could you see a street pole with the name on it and remember things that way?
Yeah. Yeah. Like last week, I was trying to remember the name of the street down the street from somewhere that I lived like 20 years ago. And so I kind of like walked down the street and in my head.
In your head, yeah. Of course. Why not?
Because it was in France, so I can't just go there. And like kind of looked at the sign for the market that I was trying to remember, and I was like, oh yeah, Levy.
Oh, wow. That would be handy.
Yeah, when it works, it's handy. But it's funny what sticks visually and what doesn't.
Read the book that inspired this podcast, Aphantasia and Beyond, available on shanesbraindomain.com and Amazon.
I'm pretty sure you could probably pinpoint like specific jobs and correlate them to statistically to hyperphantasia or aphantasia, like architects or I don't know, just handiwork, like very material elements or conceptual elements. I'm pretty sure that you could narrow it down and have a trend with that.
That'd be a really interesting study.
Yeah, nothing's 100%, but there are definitely things where you can tell. I interviewed a lady one time who had tried to be an architect for like 10, 15 years and finally just gave up on it because she said I was good at it, but it was so hard. And then I talked to my colleagues and she said like, they're seeing it in their head, they're rotating everything. It was like, it just came easy to them. And she said, I wish I had known about aphantasia earlier. I would have chosen a different profession.
Wow.
That's really powerful. Yeah, I used to want to be an architect because I could see buildings in my head. I could build them and walk around in them. But then I realized how much math you had to do to be an architect. And I was like,
nope.
No. I think I'll go study linguistics.
Right.
This is interesting. I think we might have talked about this before, and we've talked about this with Callie, that dyslexia with hyperphantasia allows you to have objects rotate in your mind, whereas like people who don't have that just have like fixed objects. That's a super useful skill when you're trying to fix something in your house or getting some work done, to be able to rotate and see things. And I talked about this with a friend who's really good at like building stuff in general. And I was like, well, how does it work? He's like, well, I can see it before I do it. I was like, oh, wow. Okay. So that explains a lot. He's like, yeah, I can rotate the pieces, put them together, go behind the wall, put a socket there, and then come back here. And it's all in my head. And then I do it and it always works. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. I have a friend who can picture things around her house so precisely in her head that she can tell you like down to the centimeter without measuring something, whether it's going to fit into a different space, and there'll be like that much space left.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. My cousin is that way. She's an interior decorator and designer. She says she's got it all mapped out. She knows exactly if she goes, she'll go to an empty house and it's all in her head. And then she'll go to the store and she'll look at a couch and she'll know it'll fit in this space.
Yeah. I've had a history of buying stuff that doesn't fit. Including clothes. So we won't get into that. This is an audio thing, so it's totally fine. I'm not going to pull up all the clothes that were way too small for me. I thought they would fit because it kind of seemed like they would. It did not. It did not.
Funny visual.
That's awesome. All right. One of the things I love to talk about are the words and the phrases in our society, because even though we all think that words mean the same thing to everybody, they really don't. We've all internalized their meanings. Yeah. And so let's talk about that a little bit. How does the way that you experience, internalize, or interpret words and language affect your communication and your relationship?
So I grew up in France with an American mother. I went to an international school in France, but in France, the English is UK. It's not the States. So already there was something very interesting that I discovered at a young age, that words are not pronounced the same and don't necessarily mean the same things. And so that kind of opens your mind up to how the same language has words that don't mean the same thing. And we talk a lot about this with Callie, who's had multiple international experiences too. And I think there's also, on top of that, there's an emotional attachment with certain words that we have personally.
Yeah.
And that, until you discuss it, you can't guess it. So a word might be very banal and plain for me, but might be a trigger word for her because it means something very different. And we've had a lot of those situations show up, actually, where we just like talk about, well, what did you mean by that word? And then we talk about it and we're like, oh, this is not how it came across. This is not how it meant for me. It's an interesting conversation, because I think what you said is right. We take words for granted and we assume people understand, but words are approximations and symbols have a personal interpretation all the time.
So let's talk about a couple of phrases. I have a whole list of phrases that I like to talk to people about, but let's just talk about a couple of them. And one of them, Callie already mentioned, was going to my happy place. And you explained a little bit about what that meant to you. Mm-hmm. Does that phrase mean anything to you, Alex? And how do you experience the phrase going to my happy place?
I think for a long time, it didn't really make sense. But ultimately, the way I conceptually understand this now, the happy place is actually a place that your external and internal senses feel calmer, I'd say, and so what that means for me is tuning out some noise, going to silence, turning off the lights. And I think that's my conceptual happy place. And I often wear earplugs or canceling headphones for outside noise. And that really helps me with being in my happy place. But it doesn't have to do with place. It has to do with a state of mind, actually.
Okay. So it sounds to me like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like Alex's happy place is more in the real world, where Callie's is more in her mind.
Yes, most of the time, because you can't just get on a flight to the Caribbean every day.
But you can go there in your mind.
I can go there in my mind.
I can't do that.
Right.
But I think what he's saying is actually a good reminder for me that sometimes I use the hyperphantasia in an escapist way rather than focusing on, okay, what can I actually do today in my real life to make things more pleasant for me now. And I have a tendency to get overwhelmed when I start thinking about that stuff, because then I see the finished product that I want to get to. But it's healthier for me to try to scale it back and be like, okay, maybe I'll get there eventually, but what would the first step be in a small sense? And then what would the second step be? My mind doesn't necessarily break it down into the steps of how to get there unless I really do that intentionally.
All right. Very cool. I'm loving this. What about the phrase, I can't unsee it? What does that mean to you?
Yeah, that's like eternal.
It doesn't make sense for me. I mean, there will be some strong visual stuff that will pop back up, but it's highly conceptual. It's like watching a horror movie with exaggerated like stuff going on. Like there was a famous zombie movie called Brain Dead, I think it was called. That was highly graphical, but it was like a parody, and that still pops up in my brain as conceptual stuff that was really intense, even if I don't remember any visuals.
So would you say for you, it's more like you can't unfeel it?
I think, yeah, that would be more accurate. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. But yeah, you probably can't unsee a lot of stuff.
No, I can unsee. I can unfeel more easily than I can unsee.
Can you do like Teams or Zoom features and blur things out? That would be practical. Put a green background in the back and then shift it to another scenery.
Put black dots over certain people's faces.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's how it works.
Not really.
Not really.
All right, let's move on. How do you handle tasks like decorating your home or planning trips?
It just comes to me. Like I get the vision and then I bring myself back to the present and try to like lay out the steps to get there.
Yeah, for interior decoration, I'd say that because aesthetics and layouts and ergonomy and well-being and neurodivergent friendly environments are important for you. And I really didn't understand this at all for a long time until we discovered this at Aphantasia and Hyperphantasia. I realized that I could benefit from it. And my brain was kind of lazy about it, but it was lazy because that was his natural state. But it doesn't mean that it's your natural state that you should necessarily live in
ways that are inconvenient.
In ways that are inconvenient, or just piles of laundry all over your house, or unfinished stuff and I think that meeting you and being with you and talking to you about all this has helped me actually make a lot of progress with myself in that sense that I wasn't even aware of, and that actually really affected me on a day-to-day basis. So thank you.
Right. So you're talking about kind of the out of sight, out of mind difference.
Absolutely.
Right.
But then when it comes to interior decoration, I just did not care ever. Well, it's fine if this is green and this is blue and this is red and this is on top. It doesn't really matter.
But yeah, then you started realizing that even if you aren't consciously noticing those things, they're maybe affecting how you feel.
Absolutely. And for planning, so I worked in a project management environment. I've been working in a project management environment for most of my life. So it comes to me naturally that I have to do it at work. And I think I get lazy at home for that kind of stuff most of the time because I overdo it at work. And so realizing that has helped me like adjust, like making more efforts personally and maybe not being so intense professionally. I think that's how I've adjusted to it now to balance it out a bit. Yeah. Because I do like IT projects where I plan financial stuff over the next 10 years for a whole infrastructure of millions of dollars. And then, I can't get my grocery list in order to get food on time. It doesn't make sense.
But you've been rebalancing.
And I've been rebalancing that. So that's actually helpful. Yeah.
Yeah. And for me, it's kind of, I don't know, I always had a kind of a tendency to overplan maybe by some people's standards. It helped me feel secure. And plus I always had those visions that I wanted to be working towards. But part of what I've been trying to rebalance for myself is realizing maybe some things don't need to be planned quite as much, and instead trying to listen more in each moment to like, how is my body reacting to this? And then use that as information to adapt in the moment.
All right. How does music and lyrics affect your brain?
That's a really good one.
Very differently.
Very differently.
I primarily listen to music based on lyrics because the lyrics give me very strong visuals. And so that's how things resonate with me. The style of the music and all of that affects me as well. Like I am human, but It's very different than the way Alex experiences music.
I think what I need to say as a background story, like my whole family are very into music or even professional musicians. So that affected me, I think, as I grew up. But they were mostly in classical music, and my brain kind of rejected that. And I went to electronic music in my 20s, and then I started DJing and putting playlists together, and I still do it today. I used to share my music with a bunch of people in the past, and people would say like, yeah, but there's no lyrics, there's no emotions in what you're listening to. And I was like, well, that's not how it works for me. There is something around music and lyrics there's a fundamental difference with how people relate to that. Often electronic music has extremely repetitive patterns. That's what it's all about, right? But there aren't many lyrics in what I listen to. So it's a continuum of music that's extremely repetitive, right? And that will get me in a very hypnotic state, actually, which I enjoy because that's when I get creative also.
Okay. And didn't you tell me before that it's kind of like tied to your memory? Like you'll have certain
Absolutely.
tracks that are tied to certain days or certain moments.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Yeah. One time I can tell you, I worked on a playlist and I was like, well, wait, if I have like possible memory fragments in tracks, well, what if I rebuilt the track list of all the events of my life? And so I went through this massive rabbit hole of coming up with 150 track playlist of all the events I had in my life. And there's a very specific moment that happened. There's a very specific person I will think of. And I realized this doesn't happen for everyone, but it's very strong for me. Like I can think of people and the track will pop up in my head and then there's a connection between the two.
Yeah. And that's been, would you say, a strong way that you've been able to work through stuff from your past by making that playlist?
Absolutely.
Listening to it and kind of like processing.
It's like time traveling.
Yeah. It's like
time traveling.
Kind of like if he wasn't able to experience an emotion or an experience fully in the moment, part of it was like preserved in the memory with the music.
Retrieve it through listening to the track.
Listening to it again and then like fully processing it now that you have the capacity and the psychological tools and awareness to be able to process that stuff from the past. Kind of the way I did with visuals. And then, working through it and letting it go more peacefully.
Absolutely, yes.
Or integrating the good parts more fully.
Absolutely.
All right. What have you learned about empathy through being in a relationship with someone whose mind works so differently than yours?
Very humbling. Very humbling. Like your reality is not the same as mine. And I did not understand that until we actually laid it out. And, you asked us a bunch of questions too that helped. So thank you, Shane, for that. That really helped us develop our empathy, actually. What's a thought? I remember you asked me that question. I was like, I
don't know what to think about what a thought is.
Yeah, that was a great question. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's really helped me learn a healthy way to question my assumptions, not by like discounting my own perspective, but by seeing that there are other equally valid perspectives and there's not like one right way of interpreting something or one right way of moving through a certain situation.
It's all about perspective. You're right.
Yeah, it's been really enriching. If we start having a conversation and we're like, wait, something's off here. Like, are we talking about the same thing? And then just slowing down and being like, okay, well, like kind of like we said earlier, well, what does this part mean to you? Or how do you experience this part? And then being like, whoa, that is not what my unconscious assumption was about that.
Or I'll even ask Callie, what visuals show up when we're talking about this? That's come up a few times and she'll start sharing, oh, well, I see this happening with us in it and we're here. And I'm like, okay, I'm glad I asked. I would never have asked before. So yeah. It's really interesting. Yeah, it expands your mind. Yeah.
Okay. Do you ever feel your differences help you see the same truth in two ways?
Yes.
All the time now.
Yeah.
Well, most of the time.
Maybe not initially,
Not
Because
initially.
like you said, the way that we will get there will be different. But then once we explore it far enough, then it does usually end up coming back to a similar unification point.
Okay. How do each of you experience oneness?
Good question.
Yeah. So I think my realization through the grief process of being able to visualize is understanding darkness as the void of nothingness. But then that got me thinking a lot, actually. And then I was like, well, wait a minute. What is nothingness? Nothingness doesn't really mean anything as a concept. It's the same concept as wholeness, as everything, just the other way around. Mm. And so when I understood that, it clicked in my brain. And I was like, well, wait, I'm actually connecting. If I'm getting into a hypnotic state, I'm laying down, I'm relaxed, and I close my eyes, I'm connecting to the everything. And it turns out that when I do that, more than often, I will have brain like mini epiphanies where I will connect dots that were not visually connectable, if that makes any sense. So connecting to this oneness and shutting off all my senses allows me to like connect stuff that wasn't connected before. Yeah, I'd say that's how I connect with oneness. I understand that this aphantasia is a blessing in disguise, that it's actually connecting to some form of unity. And I get a lot of insights and wisdom when I tap into that. Yes. But it's like almost the other way around for you, with always having this overlay. And so, yeah, what is oneness for you?
So it's kind of like a layered process where whatever I see, whether I see it physically in front of me or I see it in my head, then I also see another layer of like how things are connected. A very simple example would be like picturing a neighborhood and the people in it. And you picture like how all those people in the neighborhood have different connections to each other. Like, oh, these people happened to work in the same office, but this person, their child goes to school with this person's child, and this person is the other one's landlord, and this person has known the other one as a best friend for 20 years. And like all these connections that like layer on and tie people together. And then I start at the micro level, and then it goes out and out and out. And you can see that like for the neighborhood, for the country, internationally, around the whole world. And then it goes out from there. You can see like how the planets interact and how universes move. And literally that's how my brain like expands out to oneness, is just seeing all these connections and kind of the dance of the universe of how everything fits together.
Wow, that is amazing and beautiful.
Yeah. So same but different.
Right.
Yeah, same thing, but like almost from opposite sides of it.
Yeah.
Right. And when Alex is talking about it, I'm like, yeah, I get it. And then
I know.
And then when Callie's talking, I'm like, oh, I never thought of it that way.
I never thought of it.
Right? Yeah, I never conceptualized it that way before, and that's beautiful.
Yeah.
That
they should make a movie about it, right? Because it would be pleasurable to see.
Well, I do see elements of that in some movies.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Like, I don't know. The first thing that comes to mind is I think it was the end of Men in Black, when they zoomed out and like, the earth was a marble, and then there were like giant dinosaurs playing with those marbles, and then they zoomed out and the dinosaurs were just on a small marble, and it went out and out and out.
Right.
Yeah, I don't see the dinosaurs, but similar concept.
All right, very cool. If you could temporarily switch minds for one day, what would you hope to learn or feel?
I thought a lot about this with what I was saying previously, with the fact that I always wanted to visualize, and then coming to peace with understanding that's how my brain functions helped me realize that I probably would not live well with visuals like constantly showing up on that would be so overwhelming that I probably wouldn't like it at all. It would be way too scary. It would be very confusing. And understanding that helped me understand what happens sometimes in Callie's brain and how that can affect her. So I don't think I would want to be able to have the same visuals, even for a day. I think that would be way too overwhelming for me. Yeah. Maybe an hour. I don't know.
Yeah.
Let's scale it down to an hour. And a day seems like very intense.
That would probably be really intense.
For you too, yeah, to not be able to see.
No, for you to suddenly have the visuals.
Turn it on.
What kind of comes to mind for me as a comparison is, I don't know if you've ever watched those videos when there are deaf babies and then they put like a cochlear implant in their ear and suddenly they have all this sound input that they never had before, and it, kind of blows their mind, and it's super intense at first. I feel like that's what the visuals might do if you didn't have them and then suddenly you did.
Yeah, that's a great example. Thanks for that.
So, if it happened to you, would you just like relax all day? I don't know.
I think having it for an hour would be amazing. I would just chill. I think it would feel really relaxing.
Start a podcast?
No, I think I would just want to do nothing and just like experience the moment and like have something fruity to drink and lay on a soft bed and listen to nice music. For a day, for me, it would be hard to be in that void because I always do feel so connected to everything that being in that void of blackness and not feeling the connection. I guess I would have to learn to feel connection in a different way, but I don't think that would come immediately. I think it would take some practice to tap into such a different kind of connection to the rest of the world.
It's challenging. Yeah.
So beyond a day, I think it would be really challenging. Yeah. So it actually makes you appreciate what you do have, even if sometimes it's uncomfortable or confusing.
Yeah, it's different, but doesn't mean it's bad. Just simple as that. Yeah, absolutely. Come to peace with it. Try to use it as superpower. Not force anything. And it even started to change the way we speak to each other because you see what I mean. Yeah. I don't say that anymore. I try to avoid it as much as possible because it just doesn't make any sense. I see what you mean. No, I understand what you mean. That's it.
Yeah, or even about like feeling. You've changed the way that you ask me about like what I'm feeling.
What's showing up for you?
Yeah.
I would ask those kind of questions now instead of how do you feel?
Okay.
But I would be curious to swap with your brain, Shane, because to aphantasia, but that could be like maybe less intense, but still very interesting, right?
Yeah. I'm the same way. The more I talk to people, the more I understand just how different everybody is.
Yeah.
Whether we have aphantasia or not. And so, the question was always, would I like to experience visualization, for a day or whatever? But what the question actually is whose would I choose? Right? Because everybody is so different that I couldn't just, okay, this is some universal thing that now I'm going to experience. It's so individual. Yeah. I would love to spend the rest of my life doing that, just switching brains with everybody and experiencing it for a few moments. Like, imagine what that could do for humanity.
Seriously, walk a mile in my brain.
Right. Okay, well, that is pretty much it. Is there anything else either one of you would like to say or discuss or ask each other before we sign off?
We said to each other, it's always interesting because when we talk to someone else about what we often talk about, there's always something new that will show up. And I think like this is exactly what happens. So this is an amazing experience. Even if we know kind of all of what we're saying, just to say and answering your questions helps us to understand each other in a different way too. So it's an amazing experience, I think, to go through. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Shane. It's always really interesting talking to you.
Well, you are welcome, and thank you as well. And you're right about, even though, we've had these discussions before, there's always something new. My wife and I have known about this pretty much our whole marriage because I discovered it so long ago.
Yeah.
And we're on opposite ends of the spectrum as well. And still, even to this day, we have discussions about things we've never talked about before. Like, it continues to just dawn on us about, this is why you did that, or misunderstood this, or
just makes more sense.
Yep, it really is helpful. All right. Well, thank you so much, both of you, for coming on here multiple times and sharing your time with us and your minds with us. We really appreciate it. I really appreciate it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
If you like what you hear, please subscribe, follow, and engage with us, and share it with your friends and family as we continue to explore this fascinating subject. For additional information about this episode or Shane's Brain, check out the show notes. Thanks for listening to the Discovering Your Mind podcast. You are beautifully unique.